All right, so we're diving into Turkish drones today.
Yeah.
You sent over some fascinating articles,
Uh-huh.
one highlighting Baykar's drone deliveries and another
Right.
on the UAE's massive drone purchases.
Yeah.
This isn't just about cool tech, is it?
No, no, no.
We're talking about power shifts, a
Absolutely.
whole new landscape in international relations.
What's striking is how Turkey is really becoming a major player in the global arms market.
Yeah.
And these drone deals
Yeah.
are a prime example.
So let's start with Baykar's year-end statement,
Okay.
the one with all those delivery photos.
Yeah.
It mentions Akancha drones being shipped to Pakistan,
Right.
Azerbaijan,
Uh-huh.
but there's this curious silence about Burkina Faso and Mali,
That's interesting.
even though we've seen images of their countries on display.
That discrepancy definitely raises eyebrows, doesn't it?
It does.
It could be strategic ambiguity.
Okay.
You know, a way to keep certain deals under wraps.
Right.
Or perhaps there are political sensitivities involved. Remember that article you shared
Yeah.
about France's withdrawal from Mali?
Yeah.
Perhaps there's a connection there
Okay,
with
on it.
Turkey potentially filling a void left by the French.
Okay, so imagine
Yeah.
you're a nation looking to bolster your defenses.
Right.
You see these Turkish drones proving themselves.
Yeah, in conflicts like Ukraine.
Right, and they come with a much friendlier price tag
Oh, yeah.
than, say, U.S. systems.
Exactly. It's almost like a democratization
Yeah.
of military technology, giving smaller nations more options.
Right.
And potentially shifting balance of power.
But that also begs the question,
Yeah.
is this increased access to powerful weaponry
Right.
ultimately a good or bad thing for global stability?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll definitely need to unpack that further.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the UAE's shopping spree.
Okay.
500 UAVs.
Oh.
That's not just window shopping.
No, that's a full-blown military makeover.
It is.
And they're diversifying their suppliers, too.
Yeah.
Besides the TB2 and Akunji drones from Baykar,
Right.
they're also getting rotorcraft UAVs from Anavia and Reach S drones from EDGE.
And then there's that intriguing detail about the UAE potentially phasing out their older Chinese drones
Yeah.
due to reliability issues.
Interesting.
Doesn't that challenge the narrative we often hear
It does.
about China's dominance in the drone market?
It definitely throws a wrench in the works.
Yeah.
Remember that report you highlighted about Iraq grounding their Chinese drones?
Yeah.
If those reliability concerns become a trend,
Right.
it could create a significant opening
Okay.
for competitors like Turkey,
Yeah.
who seem to be emphasizing both performance and affordability.
So what's driving the UAE's massive drone investment? Is it about regional security concerns?
It's likely a combination of factors.
Okay.
I mean, the UAE is in a volatile region, facing various threats,
Right.
seeking to assert itself as a regional power.
Uh-huh.
Remember those reports you flagged
Yeah.
about their involvement in Yemen and Libya?
Right.
Drones offer a way to project force
Right.
without the same level of risk
Yeah.
as traditional military deployments.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And speaking of traditional players,
Okay.
what about the U.S.?
Right.
There's that deal for MQ-9B drones to the UAE, approved back in 2020,
Yeah.
but still not finalized. Why the delay?
Well, the U.S. has stringent export regulations,
Okay.
especially when it comes to sensitive technology.
Right.
There could also be political considerations holding things up. Or maybe it's simply a matter of supply and demand.
Right.
The U.S. might be prioritizing its own needs
Okay.
or those of its closest allies first.
It's a stark contrast
Yeah.
to Turkey's approach,
It is.
which seems much more agile and perhaps even opportunistic. They're seizing the moment
Right.
and capitalizing on the demand for these systems. But that brings us to another question.
Yeah.
How does this new dynamic impact the U.S.'s role in the region? Are we witnessing a shift in influence?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And one that requires careful analysis.
Yeah.
It's not a simple zero-sum game.
Right.
You know, the U.S. remains a major player in the region, but there's no doubt that Turkey's growing drone prowess is changing the equation.
Let's shift focus to one specific drone
Okay.
that seems to be making all the headlines.
Yeah.
The Bayraktar TB2.
The TB2.
It's been making waves in conflicts from Libya to Nagorno-Karabakh.
Yeah.
And those videos you sent.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Right.
They paint a vivid picture
They do.
of how these drones are changing the landscape of modern warfare.
What's fascinating is how the TB2 combines effectiveness
Yeah,
with affordability.
right.
Its ability to loiter for extended periods,
Mm-hmm.
while providing constant surveillance, is
Yeah.
a game changer,
Yeah.
especially in asymmetrical conflicts.
It almost feels like the TB2 has become a brand in itself,
Yeah,
like the Apple of drones.
that's an interesting comparison.
Yeah,
They've managed to generate buzz and excitement
right.
around their product,
Yeah.
something that traditional arms manufacturers haven't quite mastered.
Hmm.
But there's also a darker side to this story, which we'll need to explore further.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From Baykar's deliveries
Right.
to the UAE's buying spree
Mm-hmm.
and the TB2's rise to fame.
Yeah,
It's clear that the drone landscape is evolving rapidly,
it is.
and Turkey is at the forefront of this change.
Uh-huh.
But what does this mean for global security
Right.
and the future of warfare?
Exactly.
That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
And where we'll pick up in part 2.
Okay.
Make sure to stick around for that.
All right. Picking up on that thread about the U.S., it's interesting to consider their perspective as these Turkish drone deals are making headlines.
Right.
While their own MQ-9B sale to the UAE is stuck in limbo,
Mm-hmm.
they're seeing Turkey stepping in
Yeah.
and fulfilling the demand.
Isn't there an argument to be made that the U.S. slowing down these sales could actually be beneficial in the long run?
Possibly.
Maybe it prevents potential misuse of these powerful weapons.
That's a valid point. The
Yeah.
U.S. has historically been cautious
Yeah.
about exporting sensitive military technology.
Hmm.
And they've faced criticism for arming regimes
Right.
with questionable human rights records.
Oh, yeah.
This delay could be seen as an attempt to exercise more control
Yeah.
and responsibility,
Mhm.
even if it means losing out on some immediate market share.
So it's a balancing act
Yeah.
between maintaining their influence,
Right.
promoting their own industry,
Uh-huh.
and ensuring these weapons don't end up in the wrong hands.
Exactly.
That's a tough spot to be in.
Absolutely. And let's not forget that the U.S. has its own strategic interests to consider.
Right.
They might be hesitant to equip potential rivals
Okay.
or empower countries that don't fully align with their foreign policy goals.
It's a complex geopolitical chess game, for sure.
It is.
But going back to Turkey's Baykar,
Yeah.
they seem to have a knack for not just building drones, also navigating these political waters.
Yeah. They're making alliances, securing deals,
Mm-hmm.
positioning themselves as a key player on the world stage.
It's a smart strategy.
It is.
They're not just selling drones.
No, they're cultivating relationships and building influence.
Remember that article you shared
Yeah.
about their joint venture with Ukraine to manufacture TB2s?
Yeah, that's a prime example of their proactive approach.
That move was a real power play, wasn't it?
It was.
It strengthens their ties with Ukraine,
Right.
secures a manufacturing base outside of Turkey,
Uh-huh.
and sends a clear message to Russia. It's almost like they're playing 3D chess while others are still stuck on checkers.
Exactly. They're thinking long-term,
Yeah.
strategically positioning themselves in a way that goes beyond just selling weapons.
Right.
They're building partnerships, fostering technological cooperation,
Mm-hmm.
and leveraging their drone success
Yeah.
to gain a foothold in key regions.
Okay, so we've talked about the buyers,
Right.
the sellers,
Right.
and the technology.
Yeah.
But let's zoom out for a moment
Okay.
and consider the bigger picture.
Right.
What does the rise of Turkish drones mean for global security? Is it a good thing, a bad thing?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword, really.
Okay.
On the one hand, it could be argued that it's destabilizing,
Right.
as easier access to advanced weaponry could make conflicts more likely to erupt,
It's like giving everyone a bigger stick in the playground.
right?
Someone's bound to get hurt.
But on the other hand, you could also argue that it empowers smaller nations to defend themselves, potentially deterring aggression from larger powers.
Right.
It's all about how these weapons are used
Right.
and the intentions of those wielding them.
That's the crucial point, isn't it?
Yes.
A drone is just a tool.
Right.
It can be used for good or evil,
Yeah.
for defense or aggression.
Uh-huh.
It all comes down to the human element,
Right.
the choices that governments and individuals make.
Precisely. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations
Yeah.
to analyze not just the technology itself,
Right.
but also the geopolitical context, the ethical implications,
Yeah.
and the potential consequences of its proliferation.
Speaking of ethics, it's hard not to think about the potential for misuse
Yeah,
as these drones become more accessible.
right.
What's stopping them from falling into the hands of authoritarian regimes or terrorist organizations. That thought keeps me up at night.
It's a valid concern and one that policymakers need to address proactively.
Okay.
Stronger international regulations, stricter export controls, and greater transparency are all crucial elements in mitigating this risk.
But regulations and controls can only go so far, right?
Right.
We also need to foster a global conversation about the ethical implications of drone warfare, about the psychological impact on operators, and about the long-term consequences for societies that become reliant on these technologies.
Absolutely. We need a robust framework that goes beyond just the legalities of drone use.
Right.
We need to engage in open and honest discussions about the moral dilemmas, the unintended consequences, and the potential for unintended escalation that comes with this new era of warfare.
You know, one thing that strikes me about this whole situation is how rapidly things are changing.
Yeah.
Just a few years ago, the idea of Turkey being a major drone power would have seemed far-fetched.
Right.
Now it's a reality.
It is.
And it's reshaping the geopolitical landscape in ways we're only beginning to understand.
It's a stark reminder that we live in a dynamic world where the balance of power is constantly shifting and new players are emerging. We can't afford to cling to outdated assumptions.
Right.
Or to underestimate the potential of those who were once on the sidelines.
It's almost like we're witnessing a new world order taking shape.
Yeah.
Right before our eyes.
It is.
And the rise of Turkish drones is just one piece of that puzzle.
That's a great way to put it. It's a multifaceted, multi-layered process.
Yeah.
With economic, political, and technological forces all converging. And it's creating a world that's both exciting and uncertain.
Right.
Full of opportunities and challenges.
It's a world that demands our attention, our critical thinking, and our active participation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can't be passive observers in this new world order.
Right.
We need to understand the forces at play.
Yeah.
We need to engage in constructive dialogue. And we need to work together to shape a future that benefits all of humanity.
So what can our listeners do to stay ahead of the curve, to make sense of these rapid changes?
Right.
And to become more informed and engaged citizens?
First and foremost, be curious.
Okay.
Don't just accept the headlines at face value.
Right.
Dig deeper, explore different perspectives, and challenge your own assumptions. Read beyond those initial articles you sent.
Okay.
And look for sources that offer a variety of viewpoints.
Right. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
There's no shame in not knowing something.
No.
In fact, acknowledging what you don't know is the first step towards true understanding.
Absolutely.
Engaging in discussions like this one.
Yeah.
Sharing information.
Right.
And debating different perspectives can help us all make sense of this complex landscape.
Absolutely. And remember, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more you understand about the world, the better equipped you'll be to navigate its complexities.
Right.
And to make informed decisions about your own life and the future you want to create.
Okay. Before we wrap up this part, let's bring it back to those Turkish drones. We've talked about their successes, their growing influence, and the challenges they pose to established players like the U.S.
Right.
But what about the potential downsides? Are there any risks or concerns associated with Turkey's rise as a drone power?
That's an excellent point to raise and a perfect segue into our final part. We've explored the exciting aspects of this technological advancement and the geopolitical implications.
Right.
But there's a darker side to this story, a set of risks and ethical dilemmas that we can't ignore.
Okay.
So stay tuned for part 3, where we'll unpack those concerns and delve into the potential consequences of the drone revolution.
Welcome back. We've been unpacking this fascinating world of Turkish drones. The tech, the deals, the geopolitical maneuvering.
It's a lot.
But now let's face the music. What about the potential downsides?
Well, it's like we've been admiring this shiny new tool, right?
Yeah.
And now it's time to read the safety warnings.
Right.
Any powerful technology, especially one with military applications, has inherent risks. Turkish drones are no exception.
Okay, let's get specific. What are some of the concerns that experts are raising?
Well, one major worry is the potential for misuse.
Okay.
We've talked about these drones becoming more accessible, but what happens when they end up in the hands of actors with questionable human rights records or worse, non-state actors with malicious intent?
We've seen those concerns play out with other technologies.
Yeah.
It's not hard to imagine those same scenarios with drones.
Exactly.
Perhaps even on a more widespread scale.
And it's not just about intentional misuse.
Okay.
There's also the risk of accidents, miscalculations, or unintended escalation.
Right.
Drones create a physical and psychological distance between the operator and the target that can make resorting to lethal force seem almost detached.
Like playing a video game almost.
Right.
We've even seen that language creep into the way drone warfare is discussed sometimes.
It's a disturbing trend, and it raises serious ethical questions. What are the long-term psychological impacts on drone operators? And what about the populations living under the constant presence of these unmanned eyes in the sky?
Those are crucial points.
Yeah.
It's not just about the immediate impact of a drone strike, but the broader consequences for individuals and societies.
Right.
And we can't forget about the potential for surveillance and control.
We've seen how some countries are using drones to monitor their own citizens.
Yeah.
Enforce curfews, even suppress dissent. It's a slippery slope toward a future where individual liberties are eroded under the guise of security.
It's a stark reminder that technology itself isn't inherently good or bad.
Right.
It's a tool that can be used in many ways.
It is.
And the outcomes depend on the values and intentions of those wielding it.
Exactly.
So how do we mitigate these risks?
Right.
Is there a way to ensure responsible and ethical use of this technology?
It's a complex challenge, but there are steps we can take. Stronger international regulations on the sale and transfer of drone technology are crucial.
Okay.
We can't just let these weapons proliferate without any oversight or accountability.
That makes sense. But we've seen how international agreements can be difficult to enforce.
They can.
What else can be done?
Well, transparency is key.
Okay.
Governments should be held accountable for any civilian casualties.
Right.
Or human rights abuses resulting from drone strikes. Independent investigations.
Yeah.
Open data and public discourse can help shed light on these incidents.
Okay.
And create pressure for more responsible use.
It sounds like a multi-pronged approach is needed.
It does.
Involving governments, international organizations, tech companies, and even the public.
Absolutely.
We all have a role to play in shaping the ethical landscape of this technology.
We do. We need to foster a global conversation about the moral implications of drone warfare.
Right.
That conversation needs to involve everyone, from policymakers and military leaders to ethicists, philosophers, and everyday citizens.
We need to move beyond simply reacting to the latest headlines.
Yeah.
And start proactively shaping the future we want to see. A future where these powerful tools are used responsibly, ethically, and for the benefit of humanity.
Yeah.
Not just for achieving short-term military objectives.
This has been quite the journey.
It has.
We started with those intriguing articles you sent about Turkish drone deals.
Yeah.
And we've explored a whole spectrum of issues.
We have.
From geopolitical shifts to ethical dilemmas and the future of warfare itself.
It's been an eye-opening deep dive, and I hope our listeners are walking away with a more nuanced understanding of this complex landscape.
I hope so, too.
Remember, the world is changing rapidly, and knowledge is power.
It is.
Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Keep seeking out information.
Yeah.
Keep asking those tough questions and keep those conversations going. If you enjoy this deep dive into the world of Turkish drones, don't forget to like and subscribe for more fascinating explorations of global events and their impact.
I'll be here.
We'll be back soon with another thought-provoking deep dive. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.